Los Angeles, California, February 1973. A private martial arts demonstration at the home of screenwriter Sterling Siliphant, high in the Hollywood Hills, where the city lights glittered like broken glass against black velvet. Inside the sprawling mid-century modern home, expensive art hung on white walls. The scent of sandalwood incense mixed with leather furniture and aged whiskey. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the valley spread out below like a circuit board, pulsing with distant life. Two legends stood in a spacious training room that Siliphant had built specifically for such moments. Hardwood floors, mirrored walls, equipment lining one side, heavy bags, speed bags, wooden dummies. Bruce Lee, 32 years old, 5'7", 135 pounds of concentrated purpose. He wore simple black training pants and a fitted gray shirt that revealed the architectural precision of his physique. Every muscle visible, defined not for show but for function. His movements as he stretched were water-smooth, effortless, each motion flowing into the next without pause or wasted energy. Across from him, Muhammad Ali, 31 years old, 6'3", 216 pounds of heavyweight dominance. He wore dark sweats and a white t-shirt, his presence filling the room in a way that had nothing to do with physical size, and everything to do with the gravitational pull of charisma. His face carried that familiar expression, playful confidence mixed with razor-sharp intelligence. The face that had talked its way into history as much as his fists had fought. They had met before, briefly, at public events. Mutual respect established through careful distance, the way apex predators acknowledge each other's territory. But tonight was different. Tonight was intimate, private, real. Sterling Siliphant moved between them with the nervous energy of a man who understood he was witnessing something rare. He'd written scripts for both men, training Bruce for upcoming film projects, crafting dialogue for Ali's larger-than-life persona. But this wasn't about cameras or contracts. This was about curiosity, about the question that everyone had been asking, whispering, debating in gyms and dojos and bars across America. Who would win? The question hung in the air like smoke, unspoken but present in every glance, every movement, every moment of silence. Ali broke the tension first, as he always did. His voice filled the space, warm and teasing. That Louisville rhythm making even simple words feel like performance. Bruce, man, I gotta ask you something. Everybody keeps asking me this question, and I don't have a good answer for them. So I'm gonna ask you directly, face to face. Bruce turned, his dark eyes meeting Ali's lighter ones. No expression, just attention, complete focus. Ali grinned, that 1,000-watt smile that could disarm presidents and intimidate opponents in equal measure. If you and I fought for real, no cameras, no rules, just you and me. Who wins? The room went silent. Siliphant stopped moving. His breath caught. The question wasn't casual, wasn't friendly banter. It carried weight, the weight of legacy, of pride, of two men who had built their entire lives on being the absolute best at what they did. Bruce didn't answer immediately. He tilted his head slightly, considering. Not the question itself. He'd thought about this long before tonight, but how to answer in a way that honored both the truth and the man standing before him. Outside, a car alarm wailed in the distance. Inside, only breathing, only waiting. Finally, Bruce spoke. His voice was quiet, precise, each word chosen with the same care he applied to every technique, every movement. The question itself is flawed. Ali's eyebrows raised. The grin didn't fade, but something shifted behind it. Interest, real interest. How's that? Ali asked. Bruce took 3 steps forward, closing the distance between them until he stood within arm's reach of the heavyweight champion. The size difference was comical to anyone who didn't understand martial arts. Ali towered over him, outweighed him by 80 pounds of muscle and bone, had a reach advantage that seemed insurmountable. But Bruce's face showed no fear, no hesitation, just absolute certainty. You're asking the wrong question, Bruce said. You want to know who would win in a fight between us, but you're thinking about it like a boxing match. Like a spectacle. You're imagining a ring, rounds, rules, a referee. But it's not reality. He circled Ali slowly, his movements fluid, predatory, not threatening, teaching, demonstrating. In a real fight with no rules, Bruce continued, I would attack your eyes immediately, your throat, your knees. I would use techniques that boxing doesn't allow because they're too dangerous. I'm smaller, faster. I would use that. I wouldn't trade punches with you in the center of a ring and hope to outbox the greatest boxer alive. That would be suicide. Ali watched him move, his body tensing slightly, the fighter's instinct never fully asleep. His jaw tightened. Bruce stopped circling, stood still, his eyes locked on Ali's. But that's not the answer you want. That's not the answer anyone wants, because it's not about who's the better fighter. It's about context, environment rules. He paused, letting the words settle. In a boxing ring, Bruce said, under boxing rules, you destroy me. It's not even close. You're the greatest boxer who ever lived. Your footwork, your speed, your power, your timing. I've studied you. I've watched every fight. You're a master of your art, and in that context, with those rules, I couldn't touch you. You'd dance around me and frustrate me, and eventually you'd land something I couldn't recover from. Ali's expression shifted. The grin faded. Something deeper emerged. Respect, surprise, appreciation for the honesty. But put us in an empty room with no rules, Bruce continued. Then it becomes about pure survival, about adaptation, about using every weapon your body has, every technique that evolution and training have given you. In that context, size matters less. Style matters less. What matters is who's more willing to do what's necessary to survive. He stepped even closer, his voice dropping lower, more intense. And neither of us wants to find out the answer to that question, because the answer doesn't matter. It wouldn't prove anything except that two men who dedicated their lives to mastery of combat were willing to destroy each other for someone else's curiosity. The room held its breath. Silliphant stood frozen, his writer's mind racing, trying to capture the weight of this moment. Knowing even as it happened that words would fail, Ali stared down at Bruce for a long moment, his face unreadable. The playful confidence gone, replaced by something harder to define, not anger, not disappointment, something like recognition. Then, slowly, Ali smiled. Not the public smile, not the camera smile. Something smaller, more genuine. Man, Ali said quietly, you're exactly as smart as everyone says you are. He extended his hand. Bruce took it. The handshake lasted 3 seconds, 4, 5, not a performance, not a photo opportunity, an acknowledgement between equals. You know what the real answer is? Ali said, still holding Bruce's hand. The real answer is that we're both champions in different worlds. You and yours, me and mine, and trying to mix those worlds just to satisfy other people's curiosity. That's disrespectful to both of us. Bruce nodded, once sharp. Exactly, he said. Ali released the handshake, stepped back, his body language shifting back to casual, the tension draining from the room like water from a sink. But I'll tell you what, Ali said, the grin returning. I still think I could take you. Bruce smiled then, a rare expression, genuine and brief. And I still think you're wrong. Both men laughed. Real laughter. The kind that comes after honesty, after vulnerability, after two people have acknowledged something true and difficult. Silliphant finally breathed. I don't think I can write that scene, he said. No one would believe it. Then don't write it, Bruce said. Some things don't need to be recorded. But of course, some things always get recorded. Not on film, not in scripts, but in memory, in the stories people tell, in the way moments ripple outward through time, touching lives that weren't even present when they occurred. What happened next occurred over hours, not seconds. The three men sat on the floor of that training room, backs against the mirrored walls, and talked about mastery, about legacy, about the burden of being the best, about how people wanted them to fight each other, not because they cared about martial arts or boxing, but because they needed to see someone lose, someone humbled, someone proven less than perfect. Ali spoke about the hate mail he received, the death threats after refusing to go to Vietnam, the way people wanted to see him destroyed in the ring because they couldn't accept his politics, his religion, his refusal to play the role they'd assigned him. Bruce spoke about Hollywood's limitations, the racism that kept him from leading roles despite his obvious talent, the way American audiences couldn't imagine an Asian man as a hero, only as a sidekick or villain, the frustration of being more capable than the stars he was teaching, but knowing he'd never get the opportunities they took for granted. Silliphant listened, occasionally adding his own observations about the industry, about America, about the strange psychological need people had to see their heroes diminished. They asked that question, Bruce said, because they want one of us to lose. They want to be able to say, see, he wasn't really that good. It's not about respect. It's about needing someone to fail so they feel better about their own limitations. Ali nodded slowly. You're right. You're absolutely right. And the thing is, if we fought and you won, they'd say it wasn't a real fight, that boxing rules would have changed everything. And if I won, they'd say I was too big, that it wasn't fair, that you needed weapons to make it even. We can't win that game. The game is rigged from the start. So we don't play, Bruce said. So we don't play, Ali agreed. 3 hours passed like 30 minutes. They demonstrated techniques for each other, Bruce showing Ali the biomechanics of Wing Chun trapping, Ali showing Bruce the footwork patterns that made his defensive genius possible. Not competing, sharing, teaching, learning. At one point, Bruce said something that Silifant would remember for the rest of his life. True mastery isn't about defeating others. It's about perfecting yourself. Every day, you should be better than you were yesterday. That's the only comparison that matters. The only opponent worth focusing on is the person you were before. Ali considered this, his face serious. That's deep. That's real deep. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta defeat others too. Sometimes the world needs to see you win, not for yourself, but for the people who don't have a voice. When I beat Sonny Liston, that wasn't just about me being the best boxer. That was about showing that a young black man who spoke his mind could rise to the top, could beat the system, could refuse to play humble and still win. Bruce listened, really listened, the way he listened to everything with complete attention, no planning his response, just absorbing. You're right, Bruce finally said. Context matters for you. Winning publicly is part of the message. Your platform requires visibility. For me, it's different. My battles are more internal, more about art than politics, but neither approach is wrong. They're just different paths to the same destination. Which is? Silifant asked. Both men answered simultaneously, freedom. Then they laughed again, surprised by the synchronicity. Freedom? The word hung in the air with more weight than the original question about who would win. Freedom from limitations, from expectations, from the boxes society tried to put them in. Ali's freedom was loud, public, confrontational, using his platform to challenge unjust systems. Bruce's freedom was quieter, more subtle, using his art to transcend racial barriers through undeniable excellence. Different methods, same goal. As the night wore on, they talked about legacy, about what would remain after they were gone. Ali spoke about wanting to be remembered not just as a boxer, but as someone who stood for something, who sacrificed career opportunities for principle, who proved that athletes could be more than entertainers. They could be activists, philosophers, voices for change. Bruce spoke about wanting to revolutionize martial arts, to strip away the mysticism and cultural gatekeeping, to make these teachings accessible to anyone willing to put in the work, regardless of ethnicity or background, to prove that Asian culture could produce global icons, not just exotic supporting characters. We're both trying to change the world, Ali said, just using different weapons. And if we fought each other, Bruce responded, we'd both lose, because we'd be destroying exactly what we're trying to build. The wisdom of that statement settled over the room like snow, quiet and total. Eventually, around 2 in the morning, they prepared to leave. Handshakes again, longer this time with real weight. Next time I'm in Hong Kong, Ali said, I'm coming to visit. I want to see your school, meet your students. And when you fight in Los Angeles again, Bruce said, I want a private training session. Just you and me. I want to understand your footwork at full speed. Promises made, never fulfilled. 3 years later, Bruce Lee would die suddenly at age 32, his heart giving out in Hong Kong, his body pushed too hard for too long in pursuit of perfection. 4 years after that, Ali would fight Larry Holmes, his body betraying him, his speech already slurring, the early signs of Parkinson's disease stealing the physical brilliance that had defined him. But that night in February 1973, both men were at their peaks, both still believed they had time, both still chasing perfection in their respective arts. The question of who would win was never answered. Not really, not in the way people wanted. But maybe that was the point. Years later, after Bruce had died, a reporter asked Ali about that meeting, about whether they'd ever discussed fighting. Ali's answer was careful, diplomatic. He praised Bruce's skill, talked about respect, avoided the question, but privately, to friends, Ali would sometimes tell a different version. He'd talk about how Bruce had blown his mind, how the man had seen through the entire game in seconds, how he'd refused to play into the spectacle that everyone wanted. He was the smartest fighter I ever met, Ali reportedly said. And I say fighter, not martial artist fighter, because he understood fighting at a level most people never reach. He understood that the real fight isn't in the ring. It's in your mind. It's against your own ego. And he'd already won that fight before we ever met. Bruce's wife Linda, in later interviews, would mention that conversation as well. She'd talk about how Bruce came home that night energized, excited, full of respect for Ali's intelligence and self-awareness. He said Ali understood the trap. Linda recalled that everyone wanted them to tear each other down, and that by refusing to play that game, they'd both won something more valuable than any fight could prove. The ripple effects of that conversation extended further than either man knew. Martial artists who heard the story began to question their own motivations. Were they training to genuinely improve themselves? Or were they training to prove superiority over others? Was martial arts about mastery or about ego? Boxers started showing up at martial arts schools, curious about techniques outside their discipline. The rigid separation between traditional martial arts and combat sports began to blur, eventually leading to the mixed martial arts revolution decades later. Screenwriters like Silliphant began crafting different kinds of hero stories, stories where the strongest character wasn't the one who won the fight, but the one who knew when fighting was the wrong answer. But perhaps the most important impact was personal, individual. In dojos and gyms across the world, instructors began telling their students about the meeting between Ali and Lee, about the question that was asked, about the answer that transcended the question. They used it to teach a deeper principle, that comparison is often a trap, that asking who's better usually misses the point entirely, that mastery isn't about dominance, it's about understanding your art so deeply that you transcend the need to prove anything. In Los Angeles today, at the Bruce Lee Foundation headquarters, there's a small display, a photograph from 1973, Ali and Bruce, both smiling, both relaxed. The exact date isn't listed, the location isn't specified, but anyone who knows the story can guess. Next to the photograph, a quote from Bruce Lee, written in calligraphy, "A wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer." And below that, a quote from Muhammad Ali, "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." Two different philosophies, two different approaches, but underneath the same fundamental truth. Real strength isn't about defeating others, it's about mastering yourself. So who would have won? Maybe you're still wondering, still wanting a definitive answer, still imagining the fight, frame by frame, calculating reach and speed and power. But ask yourself this, why do you want to know? Is it because you genuinely care about fighting technique? Or is it because somewhere, deep down, you need one of them to lose? You need to see perfection diminish so you feel better about your own limitations. That's the trap Bruce identified that night. The trap Ali recognized and refused to fall into. They both won by refusing to fight, by understanding that the real battle wasn't and each other. It was against the small thinking that insisted someone had to lose for someone else to win. Think about your own life, your own relationships, your own competitions and comparisons. Who are you measuring yourself against, and why? When you win an argument, do you extend grace, do you teach, or do you humiliate? When someone challenges your expertise, do you see an opportunity to destroy them, or do you see an opportunity to share what you know? Are you so insecure in your own mastery that you need to prove it constantly? Or are you secure enough to let your work speak for itself? Bruce and Ali both understood something that most people never learn. The strongest person in the room is often the one who doesn't need to prove it. The real master is the one who can walk away from a fight they would win. Because they understand the fight itself is beneath them, they both died too young. Both pushed their bodies past reasonable limits in pursuit of perfection. Both left legacies that transcended their physical achievements. And that conversation, that private moment in a Hollywood Hills training room, became part of those legacies, not because it answered the question everyone wanted answered, but because it revealed that the question itself was wrong. The real question wasn't who would win. The real question was, why does it matter? And the answer that shocked Ali, the answer that changed how people thought about competition and mastery, was this: it doesn't. Not if you're asking it for the wrong reasons. Not if you're trying to diminish greatness instead of appreciate it. Not if you're looking for someone to lose instead of celebrating that two people reach such heights in their respective arts. Real mastery is rare. True greatness is precious. And when you encounter it, the proper response isn't to force it into competition with other greatness. The proper response is to learn from it, to be inspired by it, to let it elevate you rather than using it to tear others down. That's what happened that night in February 1973. Two legends met. A question was asked. And instead of falling into the trap of ego and competition, both men rose above it. They chose wisdom over pride, understanding over spectacle, respect over rivalry. And in doing so, they taught everyone who heard the story a lesson more valuable than any fight could have provided. The strongest victories are the ones where nobody has to lose.